channel if you've been here before. If not, welcome. I'm Ashley, and I'm going to be doing a pretty significant book haul, figuring I only have like one bookshelf in my room, but I have a bunch of books that I've read either for school purposes or in the past, and I know I'm never going to reread them. I don't feel joy when I see them on my bookshelves, so I would like to get rid of them. Usually I donate books to wherever I can in my local area, but because of everything going on in the world, I can't do that. So I think what I'm going to start doing is dropping off books at free tiny libraries around New York City, and maybe also hauling books from there when I go. But I'm just going to be covering a bunch of books today. The first four are actually books I want to replace. I haven't read the Harry Potter series in literal years, but I was very into it in middle school, and I used to buy them when the Scholastic Fair came around. So I have some of them that are falling apart in paperback, and then behind the camera I have some that are in hard copy that I've thrifted over the years, and I would like to replace the last couple of paperbacks I have to hardcover, but by secondhand means, because I don't want to buy them firsthand because of everything going on with J.K. Rowling. I also don't think I'm going to reread the series at any point in my life, but I do, for nostalgia reasons, want to keep the series. So I currently have this copy of The Sorcerer's Stone. The spine is absolutely distorted. I actually used to have two copies of this book. The first one just full-blown didn't have the cover on it anymore because that's how distorted it was. And this one, the entire spine / book is taped together. So I would like to replace this one. From there, I also have book 3 that I need to replace, which Prisoner of Azkaban, my favorite book out of the series. I love the movie just as much, even though the movie, in comparison, nothing happens in it. But I would love to get this one way more than any of the other books in hard copy. And I also have book 4, which is Goblet of Fire. This cover also I think is gorgeous. I looked this one and the next one up on Depop already and found some in hardcover, but I just think these covers are so cute. So it's this one and then the Half-Blood Prince, which gorgeous edition of the book. Would love to own it in a hard copy. This one also not in the best condition. I don't have a pet, so I don't know what this is about, but it might be from when I had a dog. So those I want to replace. I will be dropping them off in the tiny free library as well, but those I will like to be purchased in some form. The next series is just a bunch of books that I had to read for school. So the first one I was supposed to read my first year of my undergraduate program. It was the required reading for the English 101 course for composition, but I actually had credits from high school, so I didn't have to take composition, so I ended up buying this book and never reading it. I might read this one before I donate it because it's a series of essays, and it doesn't sound horrible. I'm just not an essay reader, and if I'm not being prompted by academia to read essays, I tend to not. So maybe I'll get to this one, but probably not. Also from my undergrad years, I have these two books, which I'm sure it was not the intent, but consequently accidentally got me into the mafia world and organized crime world, and probably a good chunk of the reason why I'm invested enough in the background that I really enjoy mafia romances. But we read the Valachi Papers, I think it's pronounced, and also Serpico, both of which are by Peter Maas. But both of these basically go into different organized crime stories, because that's what the class was why can't I remember the word? Circled around, essentially. So the Valachi Papers in specific is like really important because I think this is one of the first times, if not the first time, where somebody who was like actually within the world of like organized crime like was coming out and saying something about what was going on in there. So it's like this huge almost expose like piece because this is a level of information and like intimate information that no one had known prior. And it also really, like, both of these books really go well into like how the mafia, quote unquote, actually work and like what it's actually called, because that's not what they go by in reality. But I honestly found these like dry and dense reads, but also super educational, which was like the purpose of the course. So I'll probably be giving those up.
Hi, it's Editing Ashley here. I'm basically hopping in really quick to say if you want to know more specifically about Serpico, it's talking about organized crime but within the police system. So Serpico is like an actual like police officer. He was having a lot of issues where he was experiencing like colleagues of his within the police department do a lot of like corrupt actions, and he was trying to make sure that everything that was happening within the like police department was just and lawful, and he was getting a lot of pushback from that. A lot of the time, like, the reports he was making wasn't going higher up in the chain. When he did finally start to get like listened to, he got a lot of like backlash from colleagues of his within the police department and the police as a whole. So that was like a huge thing. He essentially was like a whistleblower within the police department and showed a lot of corruption that was going on, as well as a lot of organized crime dealings, both within the police department and then police extorting like criminals within the local area. So there's that. If you don't specifically want to read about Serpico, there is a movie based on like the novel that we read in class. We didn't watch it, so I don't know if it's good or not. But I also like didn't enjoy the book, so pick up what you want if it's something that you feel like you would be like genuinely intrigued by. Otherwise, bye.
I also have two. These were from my seminar course, which we were talking mostly about like poverty in that course, race as well, but like primarily the workforce and poverty and like the systems that are in play that cause poverty to continue, especially for like communities of color and like poor white people in rural communities. So this one is like From Poor Law to Welfare State, A History of Social Welfare in America. And then this one is When Work Disappears. This one I enjoyed way more. I think this one like helped me more in terms of the course, but both of them are really great pieces of literature to read, and they're pretty like concise in the way that they're told, so it's not as dense as the books that I was reading for my like organized crime class. From Poor Law to Welfare State also has like a wider variety in terms of like what's being covered, so those were decent. And then from my grad program, most of the books that are like reading books that I have from my grad program I'm keeping. The only one that I'm not is In Our Hands. Although like I think this book is amazing. This book like is actually like co-written by my professor at the time and one of her colleagues, but this talks about like child welfare and child policy within like the United States. And honestly, I didn't think those were things that I was going to be interested in, but how my professor taught it and like her passion behind it, and then like the book itself was like a real eye-opener and got me so interested and also pretty disheartened about like policy in general. But I love this, and it actually kind of got me interested in child law in specific. So I think this is an amazing read. Her husband's book I also read, but he talks more about policing and policy in policing. So I'll put that up on the screen, but that was like going around on BookTube and like Bookstagram for a while, and I read that as well, and it was a great read. Both of them are like really strong writers. From there, I have a series of books, which I think I actually read all of these. Yeah, I read all of these except one. and I enjoyed all of them at the time, some of which I still like enjoy and feel like they're great books, but I just don't want to keep them. And then this one I actually ended up getting for free at the library. It's The Stars Beneath Our Feet. I might also get around to reading this one before I donate it, but this just I got it because it sounded the most interesting out of what was being offered by the library, and I never actually ended up bothering picking it up because I was never in the mood. But it says, it all started with 2 garbage bags full of Legos, or maybe it was Jermaine dying, or that fight that they had before Ming got shot. Lolly's having a hard time knowing how to be without her older brother around. Seems like he's either sad or mad. The thing that helps most is building. His mom's girlfriend gave him 2 huge bags of Legos, and Lolly's working on a project so big it outgrows his apartment. But there are dangers outside. Older guys who harass Lolly and jump him and his friend Vega. What would Jermaine want him to do? Get a crew and take revenge, or build a different kind of world for himself? Lolly's gonna have to figure this out on his own. And sounded amazing. I'm still really interested in it, but I'm never in the mood to pick it up, which sucks. So I probably will read this and then donate it right after. Then I'm gonna say the next 3. I really enjoyed them at the time in one way or another, but I don't want them anymore. So the first is Love at First Sight. This I actually read for like the book club I had at the time, and I really enjoyed it. Looking back at it now, I feel like it was extremely problematic, and I kind of hated the main character, Will. Oh, yes, I hated Will. So now I'm remembering. So Will is legally blind. I don't remember the level of vision he has, if any, but he basically like lost his vision in this like freak accident, I believe it was. Either that or he had like a condition. Either way, he can't see. And there's this girl in school who gets bullied for her looks. She has like a deformity or something. But how it's described doesn't really feel like a deformity to me. It just seems like she has like a huge birthmark on her face or something like that. And they fall for each other. And she's really like holding on to this relationship because everyone makes fun of how she looks. But then at the same time, he's like upset that she lied to him. And it just seemed like a YA level drama that while I enjoyed it at the time, I absolutely hate it now and I don't want it in my life anymore. I'm sure I probably rated this like a 4 or 5 around the time I read it, but not into it. Never gonna read it again. And like they addressed the fact that like some of the stuff is problematic, but I feel like they didn't address it in a way that was genuine enough where I feel like, oh, it's realistic, but they actually touched on the topic, they made it work, they showed why this isn't okay. It just was like, oh, that was sucky, right? So, done with that. The next 2, one I really loved, the other one was a very fun ride, but extremely problematic and slow in general. So, I know a lot of people don't love this series and don't love this author, but I picked it up because 2 of my friends from college like absolutely adore the series, and I really had a fun time in the series, but I think I enjoyed book 2 and book 3 way more than the first one. The first one, there's just so much problematic content. There's a huge thing of like rape culture within the book that I didn't enjoy at all. But I liked both of the main characters and I loved making fun of them. It wasn't like a hate read for me, but it was just one of those things where I'm like, ugh, these characters are silly, but I find them endearing a lot of the time. Or, wow, I hate this character, but I love to see how their mind works. So this was a great read. I did continue on the series and finish the series and enjoy it, but like, this is the only book that I own physically. I don't need to own it anymore. And in terms of how much I enjoy the book, it's my least favorite in the like trilogy. And there's a lot of problematic content, so I might as well just keep my shelf space open for something else. And then this book, I think, out of all the books that I have here, is the one that holds up the most. I feel like I genuinely still love this book. I really enjoyed this book. And that's The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. I actually loved this book so much that I ended up seeing it on Broadway because I thought it was like so amazing. I just loved like all the small aspects of this book. The like family dynamics, even when it's like really sad and like hurt to read, I really enjoyed. I felt really bad for the father because clearly he was in a difficult space, both with his like previous marriage to his like son's mother, and also just like raising his son as like a single father and having a son who's like on the autism spectrum. That seemed like difficult for him, especially because he was dealing with all the stress of everything else going on in his life. So in some ways he wasn't able to care for his son how he wanted to, which was like really painful to read. But the book was like so lighthearted and fun, as well as being like really difficult to read because of the content and like really touching on these like deep emotional things in a way that made me feel for the characters, made me feel for the situation. Like, no one truly wins, but it's still done in such like a nice, lighthearted, like youthful way. So really love this. Just don't need it anymore, so getting rid of that. This one, beautiful copy. I hated it. This was pretty much like one of the beginnings of I'm gonna start reading classics again. So I got this like really gorgeous copy of like Wuthering Heights, and I hated every single character in this book. I think I gave it a 2-star, probably because I usually reserve like 1-star ratings for books that have like deeply problematic content that I also dislike. This one, I wouldn't say that the content was deeply problematic, but I hated all the characters. I was bored almost all of the time. It takes a lot for me not to enjoy something that's like supernatural or like has suspense that's like spooky and makes you believe that it might be paranormal, might not be, might be supernatural, might not be. That element is present in this book. Still hated it. I hated it so much. And one of my friends from high school like loves this book. She says that it's like one of her favorite like classics. I didn't read this when we were in high school. I think her English class might have, but I hated this. I'm so glad that I didn't read it in high school, and I'm upset that as an adult I spent my time reading this. The copy's gorgeous, so hopefully somebody who like enjoys classics and or like will enjoy this book ends up getting it when I like drop it off, but not for me. Then I have Milk and Honey, which I also don't like. It wasn't an okay read, but this is like one of the first books that I delved into that was like a genuine poetry book from one singular poet, and I just wasn't vibing with it. I think some of the poems are like really nice, and a lot of other ones just, they're so short that I don't have the capabilities to like tear them apart how some people who are like into poetry and literature might. So I was just like, that's nice, and the next page. So clearly I would like to have a more deeper connection with whatever book I'm reading, especially poetry that's supposed to be like very, very moving in terms of literature, and this just isn't it for me. So hopefully someone gets their hands on that. And then the last pile is all hardcovers, 3 of which are from Book of the Month, and I never read them. One I also didn't read, and I know I'm never going to. And then 3 that I read and enjoyed at the time, but I'm probably just not going to keep them around. So those 3 are The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, and then Why Not Me by Mindy Kaling. In terms of all 3 of these, I just feel like I enjoyed them at the time on some level, and either over time I've grown to dislike them more and more, or I didn't enjoy them so much as to I want to keep them around. I think that for me, The Graveyard Book, how it's split up and written is almost in like these smaller books, but it's all part of like the same story. And some of these like books I absolutely loved. I thought they were so fun. I wanted to keep reading. I was upset when they like finished. And some I just thought that they were so boring and long and drawn out. I found the end of this to be like kind of confusing for me. And I remember that I was reading the physical copy, but I was also listening, which usually helps in terms of like how much I'm understanding the book, but it just didn't work for me in this book at all. I was still a little confused as to what was going on. The background of some of the characters is supposed to be like shrouded in mystery, but then when it was explained, it was like almost a secret society. And some of the things that were explained, I was like, okay, I get what's going on. And some I was like, still don't understand. We just kept trudging. I think this book ended up being like a 3. I'm a huge Coraline fan. So I wanted to read more like Neil Gaiman, but this just didn't work for me. I did think it was fun, and I made like my book club read it at the time, but it wasn't a life-changing read for me, so it's gonna go. I've said it before in videos. I used to be an avid John Green hate reader. I pretty much, up until a couple years ago, I have read every single thing that he had come out with, knowing I wasn't going to like it. Knowing I wasn't going to like it and also not have fun. Like, there's some books that I pick up that I'm like, oh, I know that I'm just not going to enjoy this, but I'm going to have a good time. And they'll be like a smooth 3-star. Like, I hate every aspect of what's actually going on in the book, but I had fun. I don't have fun in these books, but I was so invested in just reading his books and not liking them. I think at the time that I read Turtles All the Way Down, I actually really enjoyed it, which was surprising for me. But, like, some of his books I picked up in, like, just points in my life where they really worked for me. But looking back on it now, I hated it. My mom popped into my room. So, I think I was saying that at the time, like, I picked it up and I was really, really enjoying it. But now looking back on it, I hate it more and more. I don't really, like, see myself in the characters like I did at the time. I think both of the characters, like the main characters at that, are, like, really annoying. The setting just didn't work for me. The side characters, I didn't feel like they were important at all. Like, I know both of them have, like, a friend group that's, like, present in the book. And couldn't tell you anything about them. I thought, like, the main male character was really pretentious. I found the main female character to be very annoying. I hated their, like, will they, won't they kind of, like, relationship vibe that they had going on. But for some reason, at the time, the book really worked for me. So I own it. But, oh my god, I do not like this. And I'm sure, once again, it's like a 4 or 5 star read. Why not me? At this point in my life, I was A, very into, like, Mindy Kaling. And then B, just, like, was really enjoying, like, a lot of autobiographies and biographies about celebrities that, like, I would see in content a lot of the time, and this just doesn't work for me anymore. I don't read those nearly as much as I did in the past, so I'd like to get rid of this just because the copy's, like, really gorgeous, still in great condition, and one of my friends got it for me, and I would love it to go to, like, a home that will enjoy it, love it, care about it. And then I have Aziz Ansari, which is modern romance. I brought this up in my anti-TBR. I'm never going to read this. Maybe someone will. The content's not for me. Once again, I'm not reading a lot of, like, books by celebrities. And I feel very uncomfortable when Aziz Ansari as a, like, topic comes up. So this is never going to happen. I'm never going to enjoy that. And the last 3 are 3 Book of the Month books, which I think all of them, when I picked up, I was like, yeah, I'm totally going to read that. That's super interesting. This is when I had a Book of the Month subscription. And honestly, I didn't read these for so long that I canceled my Book of the Month subscription. So, The first one, I think this one is the one that I was like most interested in at the time, and I'm gonna have to read the synopsis because I don't know what it's about anymore, but it's Bonfire by Kristen Ritter. I actually think that I started this book and I might have gotten like 40 pages in, if that, and just never actually picked it up. For me, I have to get like at least 50 pages into a book before I like start to read it, and that wasn't happening, so I never genuinely picked it up, so I never finished it. But it seems like small town scandal is going on, and one of her friends goes missing, and I guess she might have to either return to the town and try to figure it out, or she gets like deeper into town politics and a lot of scary, spooky times happens. And I really like Kristen Ritter. Loved her in Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, but I'm just never gonna pick this up. Really not. I feel bad about it. That one and this one, which is The Broken Girls, I also want to read. I think I started this one like 3 times, and I just never started reading it. From my knowledge on this one, it's like 2 sisters, one or like 2 family members. Okay, yeah. So it's 2 sisters. One goes missing while she's attending the school, and then years later, the other sister, I think she either starts trying to figure out what happened to her sister when she attends that school. Yeah. So she goes back to the school because it's like being restored, and she's like writing a story about it, and she starts to like figure out a bunch of secrets that have to do with her sister's disappearance, like that happened years and years prior. So I found that to be like really interesting. I've started this twice, like the physical copy, and then once on audiobook, and both times I never like actually finished the book. So don't know what it is. Like I think it has a prologue or something from when the first sister goes missing. Yeah, it has a prologue, and it's not too long, but I can't get past the prologue, so I'm never gonna read this. And then the last one, I genuinely don't know why I picked it up. I think it's just because I have another book credit. I don't even remember what it's about, but I know that I didn't want to read this. And it's The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. I think this book actually has like a really good reputation, but I'm not into it. It's not for me. But a love curse happens in the 1600s apparently. Then hundreds of years later, Susanna Owens finds out that her 3 children are dangerously unique. And it's Franny, Jet, and Vincent. She sets like rules for them really early in life, and they're supposed to follow it, but they never really adhere to the rules. And they start to like discover who they really are, find out family secrets that like kept from each other as well. And it's like this journey to escape the family curse. Nothing about that sounds bad, but I'm not interested. So it's never gonna happen. But that's the last book that I have. Hopefully I'm able to put all of these into the universe and they find like really great homes. Because they're not working for me right now. And I feel a little bad about it. But if you have any books that you're unhauling soon, I would love to hear about it in the description down below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.